Hey guys, Flaccid Baron here, and since I made my last Corrupted Dungeon video, a lot has changed. And I mean a lot. I will be using the same method for determining the top 5 builds. How many times it's appeared on YouTube in the past week, how many appearances it has in the top 25 of the leaderboards, and for this, I'll be using weekly infamy gained, not the all-time leaderboard. And lastly, I will be using my personal knowledge to rank these builds from number 5 all the way to number 1. So let's get into the builds. Starting off our top 5 list, we have the Boltcasters. Boltcasters have been strong for a really long time, but they finally made it onto the list. Boltcasters showed up on the leaderboards at number 15, as well as 4 different times in YouTube videos. And that's what really put it on the list, is how much it showed up on YouTube. Also, I'm going to be using a website called murderledger.com. Murderledger.com is a website that you can use to see different builds and how they're faring against other builds. So up here, you can choose which weapon you want to use. So let's go to Boltcasters. And then you can see over here on the right is if the person died, and over here on the left is the person that killed them. So as you can see, my boy Humperdinck just killed a Boltcaster. So this is the coolest part of this website, I think, is if you click on this, you actually get to watch the VOD of the fight. And I don't know how they like coded this to make this work, but it's actually incredible. So you can see Humperdinck's very handsome face, and see him fighting this Boltcaster. Oh, it's getting close. It's getting close. But of course, my boy Humper pulls it out at
played that super well.
Less than 200 health. But, you know, he's always got to talk trash, even though it was a super close fight. But that's basically murderledger.com. And it also, if you go up to weapon or build stats, you can do the same thing. You can check out different builds and like different stats on them. Where is Boltcasters? I'm missing it. Oh my god. So you can see win rates of it, but honestly, I would take this win rate with a grain of salt. It's a pretty good win rate, 65%, but we don't know if the people left, right? We don't know if they destroyed crystals, right? Because it doesn't have that. If there was another stat that says percent of times that they broke crystals, then we could take this at face value. But since we don't know that, we honestly can't really take that at face value, because they could artificially boost their win rate by just leaving and not dying, right? But it's still a pretty good gauge of what you're getting into, different builds. And the coolest part, of course, is the VOD section. You can see all the fights. Like, you can actually watch how you're supposed to play the build. And it's got 2v2s as well. So if you're looking for a 2v2 build or a 1v1 build, this is a really cool website to see what streamers are playing. As you could see, the Boltcasters has 65% win rate on Murder Ledger. Also, some of the pros to the Boltcasters, they can do tons of damage. Their Q does insane amounts of damage, and it locks on. It's a lock-on Q that does tons of damage. Also, their E allows them to have huge burst potential, where you can usually just one-shot your opponent. Some of the cons, however, is they don't really have mobility other than their boots. So you need to use your boots at the right time. And if you don't use your boots at the right time, you will either lose your opponent or they will be able to catch you and kill you. So you have to be really careful about when to use your boots. Also, your W, they usually have it on silent shot, and that is a skill shot. It has a really messed up hitbox, but you do have to actually aim it and shoot it, and it actually has a little bit of a delay, so it's a little bit hard to aim it. But again, like I said, the hitbox is a little bit messed up, so you could, what it looks like you're missing, but you can actually hit them with it. And I know that's probably been a little bit frustrating for a lot of people watching this video. All right, the next weapon coming in at number 4 is the Bear Paws. And the Bear Paws used to be the #1 ratting weapon back when Corrupted Dungeons first came out, but now they're actually a viable weapon to actually fight people. The Bear Paws have a 64% and a 69% win rate on Murder Ledger, as well as coming in at number 14 and number 16 on the top 25. They also have 3 YouTube videos about Bear Paws. So the pros to Bear Paws are that they're very mobile. They use the W that gives you movement speed. Also, the E is a very large leap that you can use to gain on your opponent or to get away. So they have a lot of mobility. Also, the E does true damage, which means that it will go through armor. So whenever you hit someone with their E, you will be doing true damage, which means it gets rid of their resistances and does that damage directly to them, which makes it a lot more damaging. And lastly, speaking of the E, it also does a bleed damage, as well as the Q doing a lot of bleed damage, which lets you use Mercenary Jacket. And Mercenary Jacket can get you back up to full life, especially if they have 3 stacks of bleed on them and the E on them, and they're bleeding a lot. It'll get you back up really high life just using your Mercenary Jacket. However, some cons are the E is actually very predictable. So you can see the E coming from a mile away. It's very noticeable when they're about to use their E. And for that, you can just use a spell that either reflects or that makes you immune to damage, like a Soldier Helmet. And then their E will be worthless. Also, like I was saying about the Mercenary Jacket, you can just purge the Mercenary Jacket pretty easily, and then it'll be useless, obviously. Since they have those bleeding stacks on you, it counts as damage, which means you can purge it with a Mage Robe, or you can use, obviously, a Fiend Cowl or something. Alright, next up, number 3 on the list is a weapon that everybody hates. It is the Hollow Fall. And honestly, I don't understand how it's still doing so well. Apparently, it got nerfed, but the nerf didn't do nearly enough because this weapon is still super overpowered. And while I was looking for clips, if you guys notice the clips that are playing right now, there's a lot of hate coming from the other players. There's a lot of people calling him cancer, all sorts of stuff. And I've never seen anyone who had a positive opinion about people who played Hollow Fall. So if you don't mind getting yelled at and getting berated by your opponent, then this is the weapon for you. If not, if you don't like feeling like a scumbag, then you probably shouldn't play this weapon. But anyway, this weapon had an insane 92% win rate on Murder Ledger. But again, this doesn't show times that they broke crystals. So this really is just showing that they don't really ever die. They've only died 16 times out of 205 uses. So it really just shows that this thing is very good for not dying, and then potentially escaping if they can't get the kill. If they have a bad matchup, they can heal themselves and get to the crystals and break the crystals if they need to. So this 92% win rate is insane. It doesn't mean that you're going to go in and kill 92% of your opponents, but it is still insane. Also, the Hollow Fall is number 4 and number 9 in the top 25. So those are pretty high up for a weapon that apparently got nerfed. Which, I mean, again, I think maybe they have to revisit this nerf and maybe have to re-nerf it. Because, in my opinion, healing staves should not be this strong in combat. So the pros to using the Hollow Fall, one, like I said earlier, is that you are very hard to kill. You have, obviously, a bunch of healing spells, but also you have mobility. So with your E, you can also jump away, that it heals you, and you're getting away from your opponent. So you can run away with that. Also, your W can be used to knock your opponent away, which means you can use traps to your advantage because you can knock them into traps. You can knock your opponent into traps with your W. It also does damage, so that's good. As for the cons, this is a very expensive build, so you do risk a lot more if you take this build in, and if you do somehow die, you're going to be losing a lot of money. Also, your opponent is going to call you bad names and bad words, so if you can't handle being called bad names, you definitely shouldn't use this build. People will call you mean things if you use this build against them. And you honestly might even lose some friends. If your friends see you playing this build, they might be like, oh, I shouldn't be friends with this guy. He's using a hollow fall. So you have to weigh that into your risk reward. Is it worth losing some friends, but you get some easy corrupted dungeon wins? I mean, that's up to you to decide. Coming in at number 2 on the list, another build that almost everybody hates. It was our number 1 build last time. It is the Quarterstaff. Yeah, the Quarterstaff has been doing really well still. It is at number 3, number 6, number 11, and number 18. So 4 different times in the top 25. It also has a crazy 95% win rate on Murder Ledger. Again, this could be because the Quarterstaff users see someone they can't beat and they run away, but we don't know if that's true or not. So the pros of using a Quarterstaff are, one, you have tons of CC, and you use this CC to either hold your opponent in a trap or in your demon cape and let that damage kill them, basically. Also, you have Knight Armor, which you use to get more CC, and you can use it as a reset button. So basically, if you need to run away, you can throw down your Knight Armor, and it's basically a free reset because they're not going to be able to get through that Knight Armor unless they have a very specific armor themselves to get through it, like Armor of Valor. There aren't really too many cons to a build like this, but a few of them are, you have very low damage yourself, so you do have to rely on your demon cape as well as your traps to get your opponent killed. Also, you might feel bad about playing this weapon because it is honestly very broken and very unfair. So it's kind of like the Hollow Fall, where you're just gonna feel bad and you might lose some friends from playing this because they know that you're kind of a loser if you play this build. Not saying, anyone out there that plays this is a loser, but you definitely need to think about your life a little bit if you play Quarterstaff. All right, boys, coming in at number 1 is the one-handed Frost Staff. And this thing had so many entries in the top 25. It had number 5, number 7, number 8, number 12, number 17, and number 22. So there's 2 main ways to play one-handed Frost in Corrupted Dungeons. And that is the Plate Frost, where you use Armor of Valor, and then the Cloth Frost, where you use a Mage Robe or a Cultist Robe. But guys, before you go rush and eat all your tomes to level up this build, you have to know that it is getting nerfed soon, which we don't know when it's getting nerfed, but it is getting nerfed pretty soon. It's in the patch notes, so make sure you know that before you go and eat all your tomes or spend a bunch of money to level up this build. So the pros of one-handed Frost. First off, they have Frost Nova, one of the best Ws, if not the best W in the game. It has recently been nerfed, but it is still really, really strong. And it's an iframe, it's a dash, it does damage, and it freezes your opponent. Another thing Frost has is that it can kite very well. It has slowing ability on its Q1, as well as freezing ability on its Frost Nova and its E. So with these two things, you can really kite and get around your opponent if you want to. Lastly, Frost has a very good Q ability. You can use it basically as burst damage because you can use a Morgana Cape or the passive ability on your Quarterstaff to make it cast very quickly, and you can really use that to burst your opponent down. It also slows them, like I had said before. If you're using Q1, it will slow your opponent and deal a ton of damage to them. So some of the cons of Frost are, if you are using the cloth version, you will be a little bit more squishy, but this problem is relieved just by putting on the Armor of Valor. Then you're no longer squishy because you're in plate armor. Another con could be mana issues in longer fights. So if you are taking longer and longer fights and you don't have a way to regain mana, there is a possibility that you will run low on mana. And finally, this weapon is almost impossible to kill healers with, because you do rely on a lot of little chip damage. It's very, very difficult to kill someone who's healing out of your damage unless you really know what you're doing. Alright guys, that does it for this video. But if you liked it, please like and subscribe. Only 16% of you guys are actually subscribed. So let's get that number up. Also, if you think that a different weapon should be in here in the top 5, let me know in the comments below what weapons you guys think should be in the top 5. Alright guys, this is Flaccid Baron. Stay soft, and I'll see you in the next one.